start the. So
No problem. Do you want me to repeat that at all?
Yeah,
I just we just need
yeah,
we just need to think about adding an agenda item to do a debrief / evaluation of No May. We did a promise the village board that we would come back with feedback. So whether we should definitely survey or try to survey some people who voluntarily left their contact information at the village when they picked up a sign. And then also see if the village got any feedback, either positive or negative. Be good to hear about.
Thanks, Steve. Great idea, and glad that you raised that. We'll add that to next month's agenda so we can talk about how to follow up and who's going to bottom line the different elements of that. So thank you for raising that. Any other committee member report outs or updates?
Just from a village board, just update. I have none because I was unfortunately not able to attend the special meeting last night. So apologies to not being able to relay if there's any sustainability related content for that meeting. So just wanted to let everybody know that.
Okay, thanks, Andy. I've got two things that I'd like to update folks on. One is there is an opportunity happening tomorrow night. It's being hosted by Sustain Dane. Maybe you have heard of it. There's Sustain Dane is a nonprofit organization that focuses on sustainability locally, and they've put together a number of these events throughout Dane County. They reached out to us here in the village recently to see if we could, if somebody from the sustainability committee could participate. And so that's happening tomorrow night at the Vessel Cafe from 4 to 7. And I'll be speaking. I think John Barant is also attending with a different hat on. They've invited, I think, Beckwa, Carpsey will be there. I think Trout Unlimited. And so if folks are interested, if I can send around information, but the idea is that Sustain Dane is just trying to convene the different, I guess, community partners within a particular community who are interested in sustainability as sort of like a networking and get to know you opportunity so that folks know what other entities are doing in the community. So I have to dig around in my inbox for that, but if folks are interested in attending that tomorrow night, let me know and I can send you that information. Again, it's tomorrow at the Vessel Cafe from 4 to 7. And I'll be attending just to talk about the Cross Plains Sustainability Committee. And not sure what the programming going forward will be, or if Sustain Dane plans to do anything, but it's kind of a cool event to have so many different sustainability based organizations coming together to meet each other. Does anybody have any questions on that?
No, I was going to say, yeah, I'd be interested in attending for the first portion, maybe like 4 to 6. Yeah, so cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do is look up while we're still on this call, Andy, I'm gonna try to look up the invite that came from Sustain Dane's board chair and get the flyer out so that you've got that information. At the very least, I'll follow up after our call today, but hopefully I'll have something to share while we're still on tonight's meeting. Oh, and I did just find the list of representatives. So a lot of these will sound familiar. So it'll be Steve Wayland and Lucia Hunt from Sustain Dane. It'll be the Vessel Cafe owners. I'll be speaking for the Village of Cross Plains Sustainability Committee. Ben Swanson from the Gateway to the Driftless will be there speaking. Amy Lord from the Ice Age Trail Alliance. Mike Rupiper from Carpsey. Mary Devitt will be representing Beckwa. And then there are two businesses that I'm not familiar with. One is Calsco Coaching and Consulting and the Xander Farm in Black Earth. And there's another, there's like a Silver Nail Studio for Geodesign in Black Earth. I'm not familiar with that either. But there will be a short walking tour at 6 o'clock, Andy. So if that's when you want to cut out, that timing is probably about perfect, because up until then, I think there will be presentations from like 4 to 6. Okay, so
Cool.
I'm going to make sure to send that out, but I'm not going to try to multitask anymore because I'm bad at it. But I'll send that out around to the committee after our call. The other thing that I wanted to update folks on is I have promised to draft a letter to Plan Commission about updated chicken ordinance. And I have prepared that, and I'm happy to share it now for folks to see it, or I could follow up. I can send it after today's call. And actually, I'm going to look to you, Brian, for protocol, since it's not an item on the agenda, but it is old, business that we've talked about. What would you recommend? Should I share this letter after the call, or can I bring it up now for a quick discussion?
It's not on the agenda, so if you're not going to take a recommended poll action of the committee, I mean, I think you can share what your plan is, but if you're looking for support from the committee, it would need to be on the agenda as a discussion item.
Okay, thanks, Brian. That's helpful. So I will send around the draft as promised, just a little bit later than I would have liked to have gotten it out, but I'll put it into a Google Doc and share it around to the committee so that we can get something in front of Plan Commission on updated fowl ordinances. And happy to, if anybody has any thoughts or questions on that, let me know, but just know that it is going to be hitting your inbox. There'll be a link to that soon.
Hey, Melissa, just a quick idea. Since part of the sustainability plan was urban agriculture, you could probably read it in 6 and discuss it.
Read it, you said?
Well, yeah, if you wanted to share it now, since it's not, it is part of the sustainability plan implementation is item 6 tonight.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, you're right. If we can
Yes.
get to that, that's a great point, because it's been an ongoing conversation. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, that's kind
Okay.
of a catch-all agenda item.
Yeah, okay, that's perfect. I'll do that then. And I think that's all I've got for updates. Welcome, John. John, we're just
How
going
are you
through
guys?
some-
Sorry I'm late.
Glad you're here. We're just doing committee member report outs and updates. So do you have anything to share with the group before we dive into the rest of the
Oh,
agenda?
I kind of do. I think you guys talked about this possibly a little bit at the last sustainability committee that I was not at. But when I attended Trout Days, I met with Beckwa, the DNR, Carp Sea, and Trout Unlimited on a very, very, very informal, hey, we're down here by the creek, and have you guys ever thought about kind of conversation? And the conversation was, it's really nice on the Black Earth Creek from Black Earth to Mazomanie how there's some group that takes care of the creek and make sure it's free flowing and clear, and people can fish for trout, and they can kayak, and they can canoe, and they can recreate on the creek very easily. And I just kind of said, is there such a group that takes care of the creek between Cross Plains and Black Earth? Because if there is, they suck at it. And they said there is no such group, but they would be happy to have such a group. And the whole reason I asked was, number one, a very selfish thing of I would love to kayak that section of the creek, and you can't. But also going all the way back to the beginning of the Sustainability Committee, when the Nelson Institute made their presentation, they basically said the reason Cross Plains flooded was because of the bathtub stopper effect. We got a lot of rain and it ran to the creek, and then it had no place to go because there were so many snags and blockages and everything like that, that it just backed up. That our problem was different than, say, Blackhurst and Mazomanes. Ours was, once you could unstop the water, it went away. Theirs was, well, we just live in a place where it just floods. And so I thought sustainability. And then I also thought economic development. And everybody was all excited about that. And somehow the Lions Club found out about that and asked if I would consider joining so that they could do the fifth piece of their, mission statement, which is environmental, and that they don't do. And so I met with them, and long story short, the Lions would love to support something like this. Kevin England also believes that the Chamber of Commerce would love to support something like this. Both organizations would like to take direction from the Sustainability Committee in order to do that. So I joined the Lions Club.
Because you don't have enough going on, John.
Well, no, I'm going to have less soon. And so I wanted to put that out to the group, not because we need to talk about it today at all, but at some point in time, we should, as the Sustainability Committee, we should discuss if we're willing to provide that leadership and guidance and support, and how we would want to communicate with the groups involved.
John, this is so perfect. As Michael pointed out, we'll have an opportunity in item 6, discussion of the sustainability plan implementation, to maybe bring that back to the fore, because you missed last month's meeting, right?
I
And
did.
that's when we assigned you to 2 different action items that
Excellent.
that relate
What
to
are
this
they?
topic. So they relate to this topic. So the sustainability plan, and I'm gonna drop a link into that spreadsheet that Kevin developed for us. I'm gonna drop it into the chat. But it actually has you as the liaison on 2 action items regarding flooding. One is working with CARP-C to reduce the threat of flooding, and one is about working to establish a water retainage project on 14 acres on Brewery Creek. So, and both have to do with working with Mike Ruperper.
Okay.
So,
Who I believe
there's
I've
a
met.
connection there. Yes, right.
And we'll
Yeah,
be there
so-
tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay.
So, so we can, if we have time tonight, we can dig into that a little bit more on when we get to item 6. But yes, we'll have an opportunity to talk with him tomorrow night as well.
Okay.
Great. Anything else, John, or any
Nope, that's
other
it.
committee member? Okay, terrific. Well, with that, I'm going to move us on to our next item of business, which is discussion and possible approval of our May 10th Sustainability Committee meeting minutes. Have folks had the chance to read them? And if so, would anybody like to make a motion to approve them?
Would make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 10th.
Thank you, Andy. Is there a second?
Sorry, Steve can second. I'm having muting issues here.
Is it your first time on Zoom, Steve?
Yeah, it's really colorful. There's buttons everywhere.
Thanks, Steve.
I was actually
discussion?
trying to unmute my WebEx from work. So there you go. Full disclosure. Damn it. Where is it? It won't go. Okay.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the meeting minutes as presented, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great, motion carries. Thanks, everyone. I believe our next item is what you are showing, Brian, which is the lighting ordinance and bringing our special guest speaker, Michael Pomykowski, to talk about some research that you've conducted, Michael. But I'm just going to pull up to make sure. Yes, that is correct. So, Michael, can we bring you in and give you the floor to talk about what you found and what you're recommending?
Yeah, I'll just let you know where I'm at and what's happened. And then if you guys have any questions, concerns about what I said, then I'll just go through this real quick. So basically what I did is I took the old light ordinance, copied it into a word editor, word processor, whatever, and read through it, tried to remove some things which they aren't delineated in this draft document. I didn't say like red line things or whatever, but there were some things in there where like two sections kind of basically said the same thing. I kind of tried to combine them. I kind of got rid of a different section that was just, yeah, the wording, it didn't say anything. So basically, I'm going to go through here and tell you what I added that's in this document. One of the areas of concern was like down on section 2 or fixtures and luminaries. So the village has a requirement for full cutoff luminaries, which just means all the light is basically going down. In the original light ordinance, they exempted fixtures from this that used a 100-watt incandescent bulb or less. Essentially, those would be like fixtures on a house is basically what I was equivocating those to, but that wasn't ever defined. So inside of here, I basically defined the equivalent of that bulb as being one that produces 1500 lumens and I need to add in some wording, 1500 lumens or less at a color temperature of 2700 K. So if that is how an incandescent bulb is going to be defined, it would be basically making it so that people on their house lighting wouldn't be able to install those 5000 K really white bulbs. It would be basically saying that those weren't allowed as house lighting. And because that's basically what because a 100-watt bulb doesn't produce that much white light because it's a incandescent, it's more of a yellow light. So then further down, I talk about, this is that security lighting, which I need to define that better. That's like more like residential security lighting, where I talked about how if somebody is walking down the road and they have a motion sensor one and it goes off and it blasts light out. Inside of that, I had some issues with how to define that. I basically say that the motion sensor should only go off when someone crosses into the right of way onto their property. So when you're walking down the road, it doesn't go off. But a lot of people have these lights installed and they are of the whitish color, which means there could be a lot of blowback. But in sort of the non-conforming section, if the only thing that's in violation is the color of the light, then I kind of give an exemption on that. If they were to replace it, that's where it's going to become difficult because you don't know if it's been replaced or if it was ineffective or not. Sorry, I'm just kind of rambling. So with that security lighting, I want to define it better, and that needs to be cleaned up a little bit. But I think that having those lights only activate when somebody actually crosses onto the property will be good, because I've talked to a few people where their neighbor has one and a car goes by and it goes off and their house is lit up. And I also want to define how long the light can stay on for. So that's not on for 5 minutes or 10 minutes every time it's activated. That's something that I forgot when I was rereading it. Beneath that, then inside of there, I actually really define that the rated color temperature of light sources in the village shall not exceed 3000 K. I do exempt businesses that are open 24 hours a day and are open to the public, aka that's basically Quick Trip. It's the one way that I could have defined to get around that. What this basically does is set it up so that, like that property over on Bourbon, they use 3000K lighting rather than 5000K lighting. And in those pictures that were in the packet, and if you go over there and see it, you can see that it's definitely much more of a yellow tone and not a blazing white tone. That was shown before. I left in a lot of the stuff on the intensity. The 1/2 foot candle at the property line is good. Some of this other stuff about outdoor recreations and how we manage that in auto display lots, that was just history. The only other thing that was added was the curfew section where I talk about illuminated signs shall be turned off by 11 or when business activities cease. I need to probably add in or 1 hour after business activities cease. The same thing with parking lot lighting. If this wants to be explored, it'd be great to have parking lot lighting turned off by 10. It's just, why illuminate a parking lot if nobody's using it? You're just basically wasting electricity, in my opinion. You know, they're going to be, and the pig does this right now. They turn off their lights. They leave the lights on that are on the building, but the parking lot lights get extinguished. I think even St. Francis does it a little bit. I really didn't get into LED signage, which were like Quick Trip put one up. That basically that line was just copied from the city of Tucson. So I need to figure out how much a nit is and how bright it is. Actually, I really didn't get to that stuff. And that's pretty much it. Oh, one thing that should probably be added is an exemption for holiday lighting. A lot of like the city of Tucson and Flagstaff allow holiday lighting between November 15th and January 15th. And that's mainly, I think, to get around because flashing or flickering lights aren't allowed. And if holiday lights are flickering, then they get that exemption. Somebody brought that up to me once when I was talking with them about why can't have flashing open signs in the village. They were like, well, what about holiday lighting? Well, when I was reading these other ordinances, they exclude it. I was like, that would be a great thing to throw in. And I think that's really everything that I did. So are there any questions or concerns, or is it too much?
That's amazing, Michael. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
A lot of great info in there. And I really appreciate the effort and hope we can do something in this area too, because it bugs me, especially when I'm walking the dog at night and everybody's garage security light pops on when I'm in the middle of the street as I go by. You know, it's really annoying. A question or two that I had, and maybe it's not at this level, but I wondered about existing lights and how do you handle like the cutover or the transition to this policy? I mean, is there some sort of do people grandfather in if they have a really obnoxious light? Or, you know, is there a period of time when they're allowed to transition? That'd be one thought that I'd have. And again, the sort of the quality of, I don't know if you call it the quality, you mentioned that the white versus blue spectrum. Man, that's the variety I see as I walk around, and I'm pretty sensitive to the white, obnoxious, piercing type of light too. You know, is that like, how do you, you know, if somebody has a quote unquote bad light, you know, are we going to be able to enforce some sort of transition to another, you know, temperature?
Right. Right. And that's okay, I can address the grandfathering one. That was kind of where, okay, because right now our light ordinance doesn't speak anything about the relative temperature of the lights, i.e. the 3000K, 5000K. There wasn't ever any mention in there. So if people have installed that light before this is approved, I believe under, I'm not like a lawyer or anything, but I believe that those lights would be grandfathered in because there wasn't anything saying that you couldn't do it before. But I kind of spoke with Bill Chang before he left because I'd been thinking about this for a while. And he said that if the ordinance that is passed, like both ordinances are going to say that the security lighting shall be full cutoff luminaires, right? That's in both ordinances. So if somebody installed a 5,000 K light that isn't full cutoff, the luminaire, the fixture, is still in violation of the full cutoff clause, which means then they either put a hood over it and don't replace it, but then if they were going to have to replace it, they then would have to put it down to a 3,000 K light because the fixture is being replaced. But yeah, like in terms of like the Piggly Wiggly, like their lights are white, those fixtures, because all they did was replace the guts. They didn't change the height of the pole. They didn't even change the metal that houses the electrical system in there. And all of that is grandfathered in, like that couldn't be changed. So does that kind of answer that question, Steve?
It does. Yep. Thank you.
And you know, in terms of, yeah, like, you know, if for the what takes a 100 watt incandescent, like a residential house, and they're using 5,000 Ks out there, something could be added into the ordinance that residents have 6 months to comply with when this becomes effective, or something along those lines.
I just
And-
remembered the other question I had too, Michael, because it's all about me. Thinking about my garage, you know, that you have these lights that everybody has in the house from the 50s on either side of your garage that were just there and you never thought about them. Sconces, maybe they're called, and they're just open. They've just got glass around them. And so they're probably 100 watt regular, well, maybe an exterior, but incandescent bulb. I didn't see anything in there about those kind of, or I didn't interpret it in there. Maybe it is in there, but those just in existence kind of, I don't know, it's convenience lights for want of a better term. Is there anything in there about that?
Well, that the way that I've interpreting reading that is that we talk about outdoor pole and building security shall be full cutoff luminaires, but in the previous ordinance, which I'm keeping, it's like exempt from this requirement are fixtures using an incandescent bulb of 100 watts or less, which that would mean that those fixtures are exempt from being full cutoff on residences.
Okay.
So, and I think that was just put in there because otherwise, like practically every single garage fixture in the village would be out of compliance.
Right.
So that's where,
yeah.
So that's where that if you're looking to regulate the light that's coming out of those, you could reduce that from 100 watt equivalent down to a 80 watt equivalent or a 60 watt equivalent. You just say they can't put that bright of a bulb in there. But I was just keeping it 100 watt because that's what it was previously. It just depends on how serious you want to be with this.
Right.
See,
right.
And so, you know, that's something to think about, chew on, you know, if you're like, oh, that's good, that's about 100's fine. I mean, those are just things that, you know, bounce around in your head. Like the way, and I'll just tell you real quick, the way that the city of Tucson does it is that they basically regulate it on the number of lumens per square acre. Like they basically count up, they're like 19 light bulbs here. They're all producing 1,000 lumens. This acre is producing 19,000 lumens, and they count them like specifically. And when you like, in order to put a light fixture on your house in Tucson or change one, you have to get a permit to do that.
Wow.
They are that serious about it. And in that permit, you say how many, you know, how many lumens, whatever lamp you're going to be, that fixture produces, or if it's just one of those, you know, screw-in light bulbs is going to be, and they count every single light bulb on every single property. Yeah, they're pretty intense. And here you go, even within a 15-mile radius of Kitts Peak, which is where the observatory is located, like 45 minutes worth of next to Tucson, inside of that 15-mile radius, they don't even allow holiday lights.
Wow.
Yeah, they are. The Tucson code is by far, I find it more readable and accessible than the Flagstaff one. And as I read it, I can see where things were taken from it and made not as strict and made it into our original light code, like the one that we have now. They just kind of moved some stuff over, and then some things were left out. Oh, and also I contacted the fellow from City of Tucson or Pima County, because they're in the process of updating their light ordinance, because theirs hasn't been updated, excuse me, since 2012. And he told me that their draft should be coming out sometime in July, he's hoping. And I'm interested to see like what they change because of, you know, newer things. So I know.
Michael, I'm just trying to summarize what I think I'm hearing, and I realize I just cut you off because the Zoom glitch for me. So I'm sorry. Do you want to finish what you were saying? And then I'm going to try to summarize.
Yeah, no, not at all. I was trying to get done talking because I'm taking time and I know you have some other stuff. So I'm all
Cool.
good.
So, okay. So what I think I'm hearing from kind of what I'm taking away from this is your recommendations around adding a curfew for lights, changing and having some maximum on the color of light or the temperature of the light, that we would extinguish parking lot lights when they're not in use, and that we would have some sort of parameters around security lights so that they're not coming on if people are just walking in on the public right of way. Are those some of the key
Those
recommendations
are,
that you're making?
yeah, those are the big ones. Those are the
Those are
ones
the big
that
ones.
are like, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Michael, what would you recommend as next steps if we wanted to, if the sustainability committee wanted to move this forward? I guess it would go to plan commission from us. Is
It
that
would.
right?
It
Okay.
would.
Do you want to, now that we've had a chance to look at it and talk about it and ask questions, and I'll pause here and see if anybody has any other questions for you, but would you be willing to make a next iteration so that we can get to the point of voting on it at the sustainability committee level?
Definitely, yeah. Because yeah, this had been bounced around my brain. I put it down on paper last week and I read it yesterday, today, and things were coming out of like, oh, this needs more, this isn't all jiving and stuff. So yeah, definitely. It needs to go through one more iteration. And that's why I was kind of like wanting feedback. Thank you very much, Steve, in terms of areas that need cleaning or whatnot.
Does anybody else have any feedback for Michael before he works on a revised version of this?
Yeah, I would also like to just say thanks, Michael, for all the work. I agree with Steve in that there should maybe be some sort of forethought about the process of bringing people's lights up to code. If it's changed and should be changed, I'm in like agreement that we should be making these moves to eliminate light pollution, but also to save the village money. So then my next suggestion would be, do we want to maybe float this by the finance advisory committee to see if they can come up with an estimation of savings to the village, which will then help inform decisions at the village board level and the plan commission as far as like how much in dollars and cents this is going to end up being. That might be beneficial. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding full cutoff means that we're not projecting any light to the sky. Is that more or less what that means?
Yeah, full cutoff basically means that the light is facing basically downward, like all the light, like if you took the light fixture and drew a horizontal line, all the light is going toward the ground. None is like going upwards. Whereas like if you had a bulb on the top of a pole, a bunch of that light is going up towards the sky. That's the opposite of full cutoff.
Okay, yep, that's what I was understanding. Yeah, and maybe coming up with some sort of, at least not in detail, but some sort of plan to help village residents get some assistance in bringing themselves up to code if they're in violation, I think is going to be significant. The
Yeah.
last thing I think would be maybe Brian can help estimate some of these costs. I don't know, at the village level, as far as how much we spend, and if the village were to update the code, what impact financially that would have on the village expenditures, I think would be nice to do as well, whether that happens at finance or somewhere else or internally. And the curfew section, I'm all in favor for. I just think the exemptions for that just need to be maybe thought out a little bit with different events that happen in the village. Maybe we want later hours on the weekends versus weekdays. And that's it.
Okay.
So thanks.
So yeah, yeah, okay. I got what you're saying. Okay.
I'm not sure the question of the the ramifications on the village finances. I'm not sure who could help us look at those numbers. Michael, Brian, do you know,
I
is that because MGE are working with our utility, I think, for the village, right? Like, how much cost savings do we even have?
Well, like in terms of the village, well, one thing inside the ordinance is that the village properties are exempt from this
Okay, yeah.
ordinance using, because that's was the original ordinance, was that village properties are exempt. In terms of cost, if you really wanted to bring the village up to code, just off the top of my head, going around and knowing which buildings have, pretty much all the buildings already have full cutoff fixtures on them. The only one that doesn't is actually the village hall, and it would have like 4 fixtures that would need to be changed. So
Okay, so we're
that's
not
what I,
talking about, we're not talking about much there. Well, then I
no,
guess maybe the number we need to look at then is, more from like a sustainability perspective as far as like electrical output that we would be saving. And how we, whatever the light pollution measurement would be, so that we can say holistically, if this ordinance is to come to pass, that this is the impact it will have on light pollution, both on that and on environmental sustainability. So maybe that's trying to figure out that number, I think is going to be good.
yeah, I know the city of Houston or Tucson did something because they switched all their streetlights to 2700K, and some guys figured out that it like reduced their light pollution by like, I don't know what formula. I mean, that might be a really tough order to figure out how to quantify that. I mean, these guys might have PhDs in figuring out candelas and stuff. I mean, I don't know, but I could maybe try to find like their paper or what they wrote or how they did that. And, you know,
I do think that kind of analysis is going to be really tough, and that's why I was asking that question. I think it's going to be tough to get some quantitative analysis, especially on at our level, at our scale. But Michael, if you have any analysis that from other other communities that we could even look to, I think that would be helpful.
well, yeah, just even like something like, if you change from a, 5,000K bulb on your house to a 2,700K bulb, what impact does that have in terms of, reduction in blue light and reduction in light pollution? I mean, just like, rather than village wide, just on a micro level scale kind of idea. And once I find that, then you can put that into formulas. If said information does exist. I don't know. I've never read anything like that, like where that's quantifiable, but never searched for it either.
Oh my God, I'm going to add this back to next month's agenda, and we'll have another conversation about it and see if we'll just continue to move this further down the field. But if you have any questions between now and then, please reach out to us, and we really are appreciative that you've done this much research and brought it to the Sustainability Committee. Is there anything else you need from us at this point?
No, not at all. Thank you for the feedback.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Next item on the agenda is, I'm going to pull it up, is a discussion on village updated water use philosophy. Now, for this one, Brian, I might need to have you talk a little bit about what this, about the concepts behind this. And this is only the start of a conversation, and we can, this is a village resident has brought this to our attention, much like I think No Mow came to us this way. Brian, can you talk about this next agenda item?
Sure. And I sent out an attachment, email attachment from our trustee, Cameron Bjorklund, which referenced this conversation. And this goes back to a conversation that was had during one of our village meetings. But Cameron had mentioned, and this was in reference to the village receiving a number of requests from residents related to high water bills for newer properties, and newer properties requiring new lawn watering and very high water usage during these periods to establish their lawns. And basically the way the village system is set, he was saying that, other municipalities as a way to kind of regulate and better cost estimate what the difference is for non-sewer usage for summer watering versus winter usage, when it's predominantly all being any water use is being added to the sewer. They go to a more of a seasonal approach to regulate and almost estimate what your water sewer usage is as a relation to those summer months of higher watering versus winter lower water usage to kind of better estimate what bills might be and not have such a high burden for those summer months. So it was kind of a outside the box, this is what other municipalities do. Might that be something that would be of value to the village to consider looking into and potentially adopting? But I think from that, it kind of made and sparked the conversation of, we don't really even have an approach to whether or not the village should be encouraging water saving as a practice, and what might the village want to look at in terms of, how do we encourage residents to conserve water? Or is that something that we even want? The village is the water utility system, so the village benefits from water usage, and it's in that essence. So I think the whole concept of this discussion kind of took a number of different angles, but it was more of a, maybe we could put this on sustainability to think about what is the grand approach that we really want to embrace as a community as far as water usage and or conceptual options for billing using water within the village utility.
Thanks, Brian. I was remembering that prior to creating our sustainability plan, water use and water efficiency was one thing that we did talk about, but it didn't make the top 25, recommendations that we presented in the sustainability plan. So my initial thought is that yes, I think the sustainability committee could probably take this on and discuss it. But it might not, we've got a set of priorities that we're still trying to work through from the plan, and it might not be the first conversation that we have as we try to implement the sustainability plan. But I'm curious if others have any comments or questions just right off the bat about how we might be able to sort of honor this request.
I can go real quick. I know it's going to be coming up. I mean, I've never heard it's almost every other village board meeting that the cost of water comes up in some way, shape, or form. It seems to be one of the, as I think Brian put it, concerns that residents tend to have. You don't go a month probably without having a request to have their water bill reviewed. And so it's definitely on the minds of residents. So my initial reaction to this is, we might have, I've seen presentations in a variety of different ways where essentially they're saying is that we have higher water bills than most municipalities in our region. And so my question would be then, how does that impact water usage in the village? Are we more by maybe just choice of spending less money, encouraging residents to use less because of that? So I'm just kind of curious with an analysis from a sustainability side instead of just an economic side of things. And just generally, like, what kind of behavior are we trying to encourage residents to engage in? And I know that what Bjorklund brought up in comparing and bringing up the La Crosse water and sewer is that different municipalities definitely do it different ways. And I think part of this is related to how do we as a sustainability committee encourage new developments to build more sustainable landscaping, which fits into our long-term plan as well. So that's just kind of where my head went right away.
Yeah, curious from others. And Michael, please feel free to chime in because you've been part of these conversations for a long time.
Yeah, so I mean, so yeah, Cameron brought this up because it's a way to not have people have to install irrigation meters into their house. If you just bill them over a time when they aren't doing any outside work, you know, their baseline level, and that's just what you bill in the summer. I mean, whether or not you guys want to investigate it or not in terms of a finance aspect. I mean, I know that like the water utility probably collects $20,000 at least from revenues from irrigation meters a year. So if you now all of a sudden change your policy, you get rid of all those irrigation meters, you know, you're gonna have $20,000 or so. That's basically gonna mean every, you know, the cost of water is gonna increase to offset that. Let me tell you one thing is that last night at the village board meeting, we approved the $4.3 million bond to build the new well, to upgrade well 2. And so that basically means that the water utility, with the math I was doing, has to come up with like $220,000 of revenue a year to support these bonds. Looking at the water rate case that was approved, that we submitted in 2 years, I think the cost of water right now is close to, like, per 1,000 gallon, I think is close to 380. And I think in 2 years, it's going to 7.25. So it's going up, maybe it's not that much. It's going up at least $2 to $2.50 per 1,000. Yeah, I need to look at that. That might not be wrong. I know it's going up more than $2 per 1,000 gallons. So when you're talking about people conserving water, let me tell you, water is going to get so expensive, people are just going to conserve it. You don't have to like implement any plans, I don't think, or any policies.
And I think, Michael, I think that's actually why we didn't place a huge priority on putting it on our sustainability plan, is because water's already pretty expensive in Cross Plains. And we had this conversation about whether we wanted to have any recommendations around water efficiency. And there was actually a conversation around what that would do to the village budget, because if we because it would have an impact if we encouraged a huge drop in water use, I think was the conversation. All by way of saying it's what do I want to say here, that we it is a water's pretty pricey in Cross Plains. And personally, I guess what I'd say is, I guess I'm concerned that if we have a water use philosophy that allows people to use it more freely for irrigation purposes, that it actually may be undermining our sustainability goals.
Hey, this
Yeah.
is Steve. I want to jump in on that point exactly. I know we haven't talked about it a lot, but what I'm hearing from this discussion is you're giving people a free pass for more water usage I know we say irrigate lawns, and of course, you know, there's a lot of controversy around that, but what about filling swimming pools? You know, there's a lot of these backyard swimming pools, a lot of gallons going into those. Yeah, I don't know. We haven't really talked about it, but it seems like why during the summertime can, you know, my neighbor choose to have the lush green fairway while I'm decided to conserve water, you know, and I have an ugly, quote unquote, you know, lawn or whatever. I don't know. We haven't really talked about it, but it's
With rats and snakes, right, Steve?
they're
Oh,
everywhere.
God, the rats
Oh.
and snakes were awful.
They were everywhere. Yeah.
I'm still
As a side-
disappointed I found none.
Yeah, I know. I should tell them. So cool. So just as a side note, folks, I did have a neighbor who felt obliged to come over from a street away to let me know that my no mow May lawn was attracting snakes and or mice and snakes. And yeah, my comment should have been, I haven't, that would be really cool.
That's really neat.
Diversity.
So
But anyway.
are
Yeah.
the snakes eating the mice?
Yeah,
Or,
it's like an ecosystem over here. It's weird.
yeah,
But yeah, so that was my only point is, do you give people a pass during the summer so they can fill swimming pools and water lawns? But you're right, Melissa, we really haven't come out with a recommendation that, maybe we should not think about that. I guarantee if we were the sustainability committee in wherever Utah right now or any of the Western states, we would be talking about this.
Yep, you're right.
yeah. The other thing I seem to recall is, I mean, we spent one meeting where Kevin and Michael both explained the finances of the water sewer plant to us. And we kind of did the, ooh, that's trickier than we thought.
Yep.
I tend to completely agree with Steve on why would we want to give anybody a pass to water their lawn? That seems almost anti-sustainability. And in the end, did we not say that this didn't make the top 25? But what we did want to do was put resources out on the website for people so that if they wanted to purchase low flow toilets, low flow shower heads, stop drippy valves and things like that, we gave them access. We were at least talked about giving them access to resources to do that in the least expensive way possible. And I think that's where we ended.
Yep. Yeah. That's my recollection. Andy, I know you want to jump in, and then I want to try to move us along. So Andy, maybe you get the last word on this one.
No, yeah, I agree with everything I've heard. I think part of the discussion that's coming up now, at least recently, is with all of the new development that's currently happening. Maybe an easy fix is just to be more proactive as a village in informing people who are going to be developing new lawns and buying new homes and building them, that this is a cost that your builder is not going to be providing to you, and you're going to have to pay that first water bill. And so I think that part of the angst surrounding the issue is some of the residents who were in these newer developments are a little bit still, I think, upset about that shock that they got when they first moved in. And so I think just maybe part of it is recommending that the village maintain their water policy, but maybe also send out some information to new residents that here's what's going to happen, and we're doing this for sustainability, and we're maintaining and trying to discourage people using water in this particular way.
I like that a lot, Andy. Brian, I think that the suggestion was just that the sustainability committee consider taking up creating a water use philosophy, and did that come from Jay? I'm trying to figure out exactly what is do we have a mandate here? Is it just a suggestion that we talk about it? Sort of what's the level of request? Do you know?
Well, I think it was a suggestion on Jay's behalf once we started talking about this greater issue as a whole. Just getting back to we can talk about conserving water or changing our billing structure, but we really don't even have like a recommended course of action that we implement within the village as far as encouraging people to, insert conserving approaches or use approaches. Where do we stand on this issue, I guess, and we don't really know that we have any sort of guidance out there as far as what the village should be telling people to do. So I think that was just kind of the spark that sort of got the conversation going to be turned over to the committee here for kind of thoughts and ideas for where we could go from here.
Okay, that's helpful. So I think what I'm hearing is our committee agrees that water conservation is a goal, and that we don't want to encourage use of water for, say, irrigating lawns, but that from Jay's perspective and maybe others' perspective, that it would be handy to reference some sort of policy that we had that could embody what we just said into some sort of like, formal piece of policy or philosophy. So that we could, is that right? That it would be helpful for us to sort of come out and say, we support water conservation rather than the opposite?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what he's trying to
Okay.
figure out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Do-
And
Do
go ahead,
we
John.
have any warning on natural lawns?
We don't, we only say that we allow them, but you have to have a permit for them.
Okay,
I think that's what it is. But yeah, this could take a few different forms, whether it's, a lawn, some sort of lawn policy or water use policy. It could go in a few different places. So I think I'd like to add this for a future conversation. As I said, it's not part of our top 25 recommendations that came out of our sustainability plan, and I'm want to keep us moving forward on that, but I'd like to add this to a future conversation outside of that sustainability plan so that we can, we can create some sort of formal philosophy or policy or something for the village to consider when it comes to water conservation specifically. Steve, totally agree. If we were out west, they'd be ripping up lawns. They're doing that in some cities in Arizona and Nevada right now. So this would definitely be part of the conversation. So is it okay if we table this for now, but we consider coming back to it and creating something that is a more formal statement or something that we can share with the village in the future?
Yep,
I'm good
sounds
with that.
good.
All right, terrific. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for that conversation. And Brian, thanks for the clarification about what what the request exactly was. We are just after 7 o'clock, and it is getting time where I might, I am going to have to go relieve the babysitter, which is grandma tonight. And so the couple of things that we have not gotten a chance to talk about tonight are discussion of committee research assignments for the new village hall / police station, and just continuation as we have now since we adopted that sustainability plan in November, continuation of how we're going to implement it. And we've already had a few conversations tonight about that, including the light ordinance. But this piece about discussion on committee research assignments, if we could just take a couple more minutes here to dig into that. Brian, we added this at your suggestion. I'm glad that you reminded me to include it. And I'm just curious if you've heard from Jay about any more specifics, or if you have anything else to add on that before we start talking about that item.
Yeah, I was speaking with Michael a little bit before we started the meeting here tonight. I have really had my hands full with a lot of things related to this project, but more so the site surveying side of it to make sure the parcel we're looking to purchase is going to suffice for everything we need it to be and need to do with regard to some of the testing of that property before we look to build and purchase. We are about to start some tours of different facilities. We're starting with some police stations in the Madison metro area tomorrow. We haven't delved into the specifics about aspects of the building itself yet. I'm hoping that comes to light a little bit more now that we're going to start visiting some of these facilities firsthand. So I should have more to offer in terms of ideas on that front once we've done a few of these site walkthroughs. So more to come on that. But I think for the time being, some of the more basic ideas and concepts that we'd like to look into for viability are, solar energy. I know Jay had mentioned geothermal. Is that even an option that we should look into or consider? I know he said that he wanted to look into potential for EV charging stations to be on this site as well, since this is kind of going to be looked at as a potential site, multi-use site for not only just village use, but also community use for events that are going to happen in Xander Park. And then, just piggybacking on what the last topic was, if we're looking at this from like a water usage mill, maybe there's aspects that we can incorporate rain barrels or, I think we just need to start discussing what are viable options that could help offset costs and be of use to the village, being proactive and approaching from a sustainable side of things.
Thanks, Brian. Do you have a sense about what level of detail folks need at this point?
I don't. I think Jay's point was, as we're inching forward with this, the more information that we can get based upon, like if we like appropriately size a solar panel structure for this type of building versus what the current cost of just a current energy system, solar energy system might run, where are our break even points possibly going to be in terms of cost effectiveness and how much this might save the village. I think if we can start to look at, are these even viable options, or why should they be considered priorities with regard to the new building, and why we think it is important that we do add solar panels or some of these various other needs. If we can show that kind of break even point or how cost effectiveness is, the village will come out ahead based on current costs related to what the average charge would be if we did nothing, and just kind of show where those kind of cost benefit analyses come out. I think that anything that we can bring like that forward to the board, I think will help in getting us a better idea of where we want to put our focus on some of those particular projects.
That's great. Thanks, Brian. So here's what I'm going to recommend at this point. I think on our next call, what I'd like folks to do between now and our next meeting, which is July 12th, is to think about what aspects you would be interested in researching. And then let's create sort of a wish list on our next call, and then we'll parse out from there who can take on different parts of that, the research and maybe some analysis. We've talked about geothermal, as you said, solar, electric vehicle infrastructure. There might be other elements that we want to include too. So your homework, committee members, between now and then is to do some ideation, think about what you would like to see, what would you be really proud of if somebody came into your community, what could you show them that we helped manifest here in Cross Plains, in our village hall and our police station. Create some of those, get some of those ideas going and bring them to our next call, and then we can break up who's going to do some of that research. And as we've done before, we can break into subcommittees if it's helpful to do some of that research collectively. But that's my suggestion for moving that forward. So between now and then, do some ideation, do some dreaming, do a little bit of looking around to what you see on other communities, what would give you a sense of pride. What do you think our future needs? And then we'll talk about it on July 12th. Cool.
Just real quick, I'm sorry, Melissa. I just want to clarify with Brian. How long is the testing going to take on the site itself as far as the surveying and soil sampling?
So I just reached out to two different environmental related companies today, one to initiate a phase 1 environmental survey, and that's estimated to take around 30 days. The second for a wetland delineation based upon a hydric soil area that exists on the current property to deem whether or not it's acceptable to build or if that will impact anything with regard to the wetland. That is more or less like the 20-ish day range, I think, that they said that they could have that done. So I'm anticipating having responses and results to each prior to our July board meeting, where we'll have time to review their findings and then make a decision on whether or not we're going to exercise the option for the purchase of the property.
Okay, thank you for that update.
Yep.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Andy. Our last item is on the sustainability plan implementation. And I know we don't have much time for this, but I do want to, Brian, can I share my screen really quickly?
Yes. Do I need to get something, or can you?
I think you both need to stop sharing, and then you also have to enable screen sharing.
Not sure if I'm getting this right or not.
So you should be able to, so if you stop sharing your screen, you should be able to maybe hover. Let's see, you can, I think, click on participants, and then there's a caret maybe that allows you to share, or I forget how to do it if I'm not, I can't, because I'm not the host, I don't remember how to do it myself now.
Yep, if you click on participants and then you hover over Melissa Gavin, you can go to more, and I think from there you can provide access.
Okay, you got it.
Got it.
Yep. So what I wanted to show folks was this letter that I've been promising for a while. And we can, I can share that, I can create a Google Doc out of this so that you can edit it, but I'd like to get this to Plan Commission. And what I've done here in this letter is, so first of all, I've never written a formal letter to Plan Commission. I don't have any idea how to, the protocol. Do I address people individually? Do I just write to Plan Commission? So a lot of questions about just like the protocol there. But what I've done is I have referenced our sustainability plan in the first paragraph. I've talked about how emissions from our food system from in the US is about 25% of our country's total carbon footprint. And so reducing food miles and the carbon footprint from food is an immediate step we can take to reduce emissions from our community. And then I've gone on to make a set of 4 recommendations around really urban ag, but more specifically around ducks and chickens. The first is expanding chicken coop permits beyond just owner occupied housing. The second is allowing ducks to be kept within village limits. The third recommendation is increasing the number of chickens up to 6. And the fourth is allowing for the collective up to 10 collective domestic fowl. And then I listed the communities in Wisconsin that allow 6 chickens. And then there are some communities that have a larger cap for if it's a combined amount of domestic fowl. And then I signed off asking if folks had questions. So that's what you'll see in this Google Doc. And I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what that is, and then invite any questions and let you know that you'll have editing powers or commenting powers so you can make any updates. And because I've been promising this for several weeks, I feel really bad about getting it to you now. So does anybody have any questions on this or thoughts on this before I share it in a Google Doc?
What is collective domestic fowl?
So this would mean there's a conversation on Plan Commission about whether there should be a cap, and should they cap a number of ducks and cap the number of chickens? Should they just have a collective cap and it doesn't matter what the combination is? And so what I mean by that is it's up to 10, and it doesn't really matter if it's a combination of, what the ratio of ducks to chickens. It's just if domesticated fowl,
Okay, so
you can have 10 collectively.
got it.
So, okay, so you're saying allow for 10 domestic fowl of either chickens or ducks, right? It doesn't
Yep.
matter. So
Right.
that's why it's confusing why you say increasing the number of chickens permitted from 4 to 6. Are those
Yeah,
kind of staying the
they
same?
probably,
Like,
yeah,
aren't
that's
you
probably
just
true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying,
I-
because that was my question too.
Yeah, Michael, I think that is confusing. I think what I was thinking initially was just looking at, I should just take that out, and I will. Initially I was thinking we should at least increase the number of chickens. And then I was like, but we should also say it doesn't matter what the number of chickens or ducks is as long as it's under 10 total. So you're right, I should just take out that number 3 and just say up to 10 collective.
But that's a great loophole. You could have 6 chickens. But as soon as you add 1 duck, you could have 9 chickens.
No, I'm with you, John. I am 100% with you, which is what the planning commission ended up deciding is that that was like their sticking point on this. You're right, John.
Well, here's what I'm gonna do, because you guys are all brilliant and will help me improve this letter. I'm gonna turn it into a Google Doc and share it with you, and I'm gonna move us toward closure tonight, because I've already gone over and I just had somebody poke in, say, hey, Mom, your time's up. So I'm gonna I'm gonna wrap us up, and we will continue this conversation about sustainability plan implementation. We've already talked about some of these things. We'll continue that conversation next month, and hopefully we will see each other. Many of us will see each other tomorrow night at Vessel Cafe. Again, there is a convening at Vessel Cafe from 4 to 7 that's being hosted by the Sustain Dane to bring folks who are part of different sustainability committee or groups together to just kind of network and share ideas and learn from each other. So hopefully we'll see each other there tomorrow night. I think our next steps are that Michael will take the feedback on the lighting ordinance recommendations and create a revised version of those recommendations for discussion next month. We will, between now and next month, we will spend some time in creative ideation around the village hall and police station. And then on our meeting on July 12th, we'll start to figure out what aspects we support and want to do individual or group research around. And we will also get feedback from all of you on the letter about chickens and supporting an increased an expansion on urban ag ordinances in Cross Plains. Those are my next steps. Did I miss anything?
I have a quick question. Brian, is that urban ag going to public hearing in July for Plan Commission?
So the sign ordinances and the chickens and duck ordinance are on the public hearing list for plan.
So you were talking about like feedback for that letter, Melissa. So you're going to send it to the Plan Commission for public hearing for the July meeting, right? So
That's my hope. Yeah. And so thanks for that, Michael. So that means that we would need feedback from committee members probably in the next week, right? Or 2.
yeah, that's, I just wanted to make sure so that people didn't think they had to the next meeting. if they
Thank
were-
you. Yep, thanks. Anything else from folks?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Nice
Thanks,
work.
everyone. Then I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Steve will second.
Thanks, Steve. All in favor of adjourning at 7:22, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thanks, everyone. We're adjourned. Have a
you.
great rest of your night. And if I don't see you tomorrow night, I'll see you in the next few weeks.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
You guys.